Thank you. I have to make one comment about making spelling errors. It is really important to check what you're writing, because once, instead of saying friend, I said fiend because I left out the R, which is completely not the message I was trying to communicate. So spell check. Oops. So when we're talking about marketing versus branding, a lot of people really don't understand what is the difference between the two. So why do I have to think of both of them? So the difference basically between marketing and branding, marketing is you telling your patients that you are here to help them. Branding is the patient knowing that they can go to you for help, right? So I'm going to give you a couple of examples. Now, when I look at this popular global brand slide, a lot of you are looking at it and you're going, okay, logos, I need a logo. Brands are more than your logo, but a logo is a way to identify your brand. So we're going to look at some things. So if I put up this slide, there's nothing on here that says the name of the company, but what is it? Starbucks. Now, how many of you, when you look at this slide, automatically think, I really need a coffee? How many of you are going, I need a coffee, but I don't want one that expensive? All of you are having a reaction of some kind to the logo that you're seeing because they have a brand behind that logo. What's this one? Yes. See, I'm with you, Felice. I don't like eating there either. So I look at that and I go, oh, I hate that place. But a lot of people love McDonald's because they do enjoy 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun. Now, the only reason I know that is because they have good branding, because I don't like their food. Let me qualify, I am vegetarian, so they don't have a lot of options for me. This? Apple. How many people here are Mac users? Excellent. And how many people love their Mac? And it's true, with people that have Apple products usually love their Apple product, right? And it's because of that whole innovation brand that has been built behind it. You only like it? Yes. Only like it. Yes. And this one, even though they spell out their name, people have an opinion about Google, right? Is it your favorite browser? Is it not your favorite browser? Right away, people have some kind of reaction to these logos that they see. But the reaction itself is the brand, not the logo. So how do you define your brand? So really, you have to know your purpose as an organization, what qualities you want to portray, and what are your values. And I know when we discussed the other day about your mission and vision, if you've already identified what your vision statement is and your mission statement is, then you already know what your purpose is, right? So you've done the work already. What I'm telling you, though, is regardless of if you do this work or not, you are going to have a brand, because brand is based on customer perception. And every patient, every organization, every politician that interacts with you is going to have an opinion of who you are, right? So it's important that you actually know what it is that you're trying to communicate through your brand and how you talk and how you present your organization. Oops. So how do we create a brand? First, you really need to figure out, why are we here? So like I said, if you've done that work with the mission and the vision, great, you should know it. But if you haven't, you really need to start here. So you can go right back and say, why did we start this organization in the first place? Why do we think we need to be here? What makes us different than other organizations that may already exist? Why does it matter to me that we actually achieve what it is we're setting out to try to achieve, right? What is important about what we're doing? What you have to remember is that brands are built over time. So you're going to set this information up to start your branding process, but it's going to take a period of time for it to permeate, or for the brand recognition to take with your audience, all right? But you do need to start here. The important thing is when you set this up is that you actually follow through. So if you're going to say that you're dedicated to supporting patients, when a patient comes to you, you need to be able to support them. As soon as you start not being trustworthy or delivering on your promises, then your brand is going to go away as well, right? People are not going to respect you or think that you have a lot to offer them. So it's very important to be able to follow through on what you're promising. So you have to really think of partially your brand as your personality. You meet people all the time and their personality comes across. As we've heard, Jan is German, and that's his personality. But you know what I mean? Everybody has something that they communicate immediately when you meet them. They're warm, they're not, they're approachable, they're not. Are they a very traditional? Do you want to be a traditional organization? Do you want to be recognized for your innovation? Figure it out. What is it that you want to communicate to people? This is just a really quick look at two organizations that focus on exactly the same patient population in terms of they both support breast cancer. These are Canadian examples, Rethink Breast Cancer and then the Canadian Breast Cancer Foundation. But if you look at them, their branding is very, very different, right? One is much more modern, it's a younger person, and the other is very much a more traditional approach. I am not saying one brand is better than the other, they're not. But they've decided that their focus is different, and their target population at the end of the day is different as well. All right? You look at the Canadian Breast Cancer Foundation with the nice cups of coffee and tea on the table, and it is just a more traditional approach for people to connect versus the woman sitting on the stairs very casually, looking, you know, like she's there to help you in a way. So part of what you are when you're creating your brand is also to look at the values that you want to communicate. We didn't really discuss this in the mission and vision portion when we had that discussion, but it can be part of that you have formal values that you can add to those statements. These are the ones that Lymphoma Canada uses. We do have formal value statements. What I didn't mention when I did the governance talk is that we have a very strong governance committee with Lymphoma Canada. So if it's something that somebody thinks we need from a governance perspective, we have it because it's just such a main focus. So these are our values. Compassion. Our work is rooted in empathy, respect, and kindness. Integrity, we are honest and transparent and adhere to high ethical standards of quality and fairness. Excellence, we are passionate and determined and committed to being highly efficient and effective. Influential, we are credible and professional and dedicated to making an impactful difference that is evidence-based and legacy-worthy and innovative. We are resourceful, empowered, and progressive. We deliver results through teamwork. We sound good, don't we? But it's important to define those when you're trying to figure out where do we want to be in this space and how do we want people to think about us. Because these kinds of values do really have an effect on just about everything we do. It affects how we present ourselves when we go into a meeting, what kind of information we're going to present to a patient, right? If we're looking, we say in here that we have excellence and we are influential because we're always giving good quality information that is evidence-based, reviewed by our doctors, nurses, the applicable people that need to review to make sure that it's highly credible what we're communicating, right? Every little piece of what we do is influenced by the values. So if you can figure out all these things about who you are and what you are, then you can actually do have a brand already, even though you may have nothing to show for your brand other than a list of words on a page. And that's okay. It's somewhere to start. You just have to figure out who you are as an organization, where you want to focus, and what you want that to look like. So if you have a brand, then you can start marketing. You should not start marketing until you have a brand, all right? And marketing is basically tactical. So the brand is strategic. This is who we want to be. And then the marketing piece is how are we going to communicate that to people? One thing that's important when you get into this marketing is you have to know who your audience is, and you have to communicate back and forth with people to make sure that what you're saying is resonating. So a little bit about knowing your audience. Think about it this way. It's like if you're creating ideally a piece, whatever it might be, who ideally do you want to read it? Or who do you want to see it? And if you create that mental picture of who that person is, then take that information and write it down. So you know that you want it to be a patient. Okay, so if it's a CLL patient, your typical CLL patient is a male who's 72 years old, retired. Is that actually who you're designing that message for? Now, it may be, if it's a support piece, that you're actually targeting a younger demographic because you want a caregiver or a support person for that CLL person to be the one reading the materials. Well, then the material is going to look different. So if you think about, I'll use my nieces as an example, right? Who I'm very close to my nieces and nephews. But what they want is 17, they range between the ages of 17 and 27. Where they are in their life and what their big focuses are is very different than mine. And sometimes I look at them and go, are you serious? Now, I love them dearly, but you know what I mean? We're just at very different places in our lives with different interests and different focus. So it's a very different message, all right? Where this can really come into effect, even if you have a very centralized organization. So your focus is on CLL, and you're thinking, well, my target audience is my 72-year-olds, and that's who I'm really going to focus on. There's scalability in that diagnosis age. There are outliers at the ends, and you're going to have to think about them. But you're also dealing with healthcare professionals. If you want people to donate to your organization, you may be running fundraising events that have a much wider audience, target audience, than you do for your patients themselves. So if I give an example from Lymphoma Canada, we do an event that's yoga-based, yoga and meditation. It's a peer-to-peer fundraising. They ask their friends and family to donate, and then they go and do 108 minutes of yoga or meditation. Well, the target audience for our Take It to the Mat yoga event and our target audience for some of our patient education sessions are obviously very different, right? So we cater the materials to the person we're trying to communicate with. So this is the thing. Even though you may say, oh, I want all this material to go to my patients, do you know all this information that you may need to know about your patients? Are you going to target to a specific geographic area because you're doing a patient education event there? Or is it going to be something that's global because it's online and on the internet? How old are they? Are they male? Are they female? What motivates them? Is it going to be directed to people that have had treatment, have not had treatment? Are these people that are curious about their disease and have indicated they want to know more? Or are these people that are know nothing about their disease yet and are really at a very early stage? You have a lot that you know about your patients or your target audience in these cases. You need to figure it out because it's going to affect the message. All the time, go back to that. If I were that person in that place, what kind of messaging would work for me? Now, it's great to know that, but it's also really, really effective to test it. You have patients already that you're dealing with, ask them what they think. If we're going back out with this message, we have a new brochure, we have a new campaign, we have a new website, what do you think? Before you put it out there in the public, get some feedback from the people that you know already, all right? Get their honest opinions about what you're doing. Now, I know y'all mentioned this, but I'm gonna reinforce it. That whole thinking that seniors are not online is just not true anymore. This, where it says Canadians are high users of the internet globally. I think partially because our country's so big and it gets really snowy and cold and we just stay inside. I don't know what it is. But we do use a lot of internet. We watch a lot of YouTube videos. But Canadians aged 65 and older represent the fastest growing group of internet users. And furthermore, among seniors, internet users, approximately 70% go online every day. This particular stat was from 2010, so 6 years ago. So you're looking at 65 and older then, who are now 71 and older now, all right? So it's a huge number of patients who are in those older age brackets that are online, they are active. And then in the US, the internet use among those 65 and older grew 150% between 2009 and 2011, which is the largest growth in a demographic group. There's lots of evidence out there saying that these people are really active online. Now, their habits may be a little different. You know, they're not necessarily downloading music or watching videos on YouTube the same as other people, and that's fine. But what seniors or older people traditionally do on the internet is use it as an encyclopedia, basically. They go looking for information. They go looking for things like book reviews and health information, travel information, right? So they're looking for a lot of information, which is great, but they also use it to communicate. So a high rate of people on blogs, on Facebook. The older population is, I think, the highest demographic right now of morphing onto Facebook. So there's lots of ways that people use it to connect. I always use my parents as an example. My mom's on Facebook. My mom Skypes with her siblings that are in Europe from Canada all the time. My mom knows how to create Facebook groups to invite people to different things, which I think is a little bit funny. My dad was on Facebook, hated it, thought it was too gossipy. So he stopped using Facebook. But my dad is a woodworker, and so he built me a new woodworking bench for my shop because I like to do that stuff too. And it's beautiful. It has all these different pieces that you can take and transform and move around all these different clamps. And when I was like, this is great, he's like, yeah, when I posted it on my Pinterest page, I got like 600 likes right away. And I was, you're on Pinterest? I had no clue. So you never know what they're doing, but people will engage and learn the technology. It does take them longer to learn new tasks as you age. So don't make things too complicated, definitely. And as much as possible, make things simple that you can just use a mouse and click rather than doing a lot of typing, and make sure that your print is larger. Yeah, I know people can make their screens bigger, but it would still help if you make sure your font size, if you're targeting an older audience, is that little bit bigger when you put it in the website in the first place, okay? So fonts matter. The fonts that you pick for how you're going to communicate do say something. So be careful about what you're choosing. I know the one that says I am sensitive also says I am really hard to read. So think about those things when you're looking at any kind of materials that you're producing. All right? You may think it looks really cool to use as many fonts as you can find, and there are so many out there. It is a bad idea. So keep the number of fonts that you're using in any one piece down to 2, maybe 3, but nothing, don't go extraordinarily into multiple fonts. Eyes can't process that quickly, and people will switch you off, truthfully. Oops. So colors matter as well. So think about the colors that you're using on different things. There is a ton of research online about the psychological impact of colors. You can look at it, but colors do matter. Just keep it in mind. As well, if you're looking at printing, some colors are much harder to read than others, so make sure you're taking that into account. Yellow, for instance, is a really hard color on most backgrounds to read. Now, you do need to create a logo. And so this is just a really quick logo lesson. So I've been very honest. I'm also involved with the CLL patient advocacy group in Canada. Great people. I love working with this group. We've been through 2 logos since our creation in 2005. And we're actually, where the question mark is, that is not our new logo, so rest assured it's not going to be that. But we are in the process of creating a new logo. And this is how this started. We originally started with what the logo that's on the far side here, oh sorry, it's on the near side when I look here, with the circle. That circle is actually a CLL cell. So you look at that and you're like, that's a cool idea, to people that know that that's a CLL cell. Most people look at that and think, why does your globe have the wrong, like the continents look funny? People didn't know what that was. The other issue is when we tried to print this, it would get really messy. because it's too small a symbol. If you're printing in black and white, it really looked like nothing. It was just a weird globby circle and people didn't get it, right? If we were embroidering on something, it was way too complicated. We couldn't put it on t-shirts. It was a great idea, but it didn't really translate into use. So don't be afraid if you have a logo that's not working to change it. Now, we went to the logo in the middle because it was really easy and we needed something fast. And I'll be honest, that's why we did it. Now, is it a great logo? No, but at least people know who we are and what we're doing. But what we're doing right now, because the other two were definitely in-house creations, we've sent it out to the design company because we've gotten to the point where we have some money in the budget that we can afford to do that. And if you're struggling with this, sometimes it's good to find a friend, right? So whether it's a vendor that you're going to pay, or if you can find a designer that is willing to do something for you for free, to go out to them and ask and give them all the information your brand information, so that they can come up with a good design for you on what your logo should be. Now, we don't have our new logo designs yet, but we are anxiously looking forward to them, and we'll see what that looks like. I'll show you next time. Now, websites. You all need to have a website. Now, I know some people are like, websites are expensive, you have to maintain them. You don't actually have to use a formal website, but you should have a domain name for your organization that goes to, if it's not going to be a formal website, goes to a Facebook page or goes to a blog. There are lots of things out there that you can use for free. There are lots of free templates. There are lots of free services for building websites that are not complicated online. Now, if you're using the free services, you usually end up with their branding on your website as well. It'll say powered by Wix or something along the bottom. But that's the trade-off you take from not paying someone to build it for you. You're still going to have some expenses involved, but they'll be minimal. All right? If you want to ask me about free services that work later, I'm happy to share. But you need a website. And this is what you have to think about when you're looking at building a website or looking at the website that you currently have. One, your branding needs to be consistent on everything you do, including your website. People should not be confused when they look at your website versus printed materials versus emails that you send versus your business cards and go, is this the same organization or not? Your branding is off if that is happening, right? It has to be consistent. In this day and age, it has to be responsive. And that means if you're looking at a website on a computer screen, a mobile phone, a tablet, however you're looking at them, you have to be able to read the website, right? It can't stay really big and then just scale down on a phone so that you're like, it's really, really tiny print right now. That is not a good thing, right? So it has to scale to the device, which is called responsiveness. It has to load quickly. I don't know about you, but I am like the most impatient person when it comes to the internet and I see something I want to read and I click on it and then I'm waiting. I'm like, done, close, I'm out of here. I'll find some other resource to look at, right? A lot of that is because people have videos or photos that haven't been scaled down to actual internet usage. So always test anything you're doing to see how quickly it's going to load on multiple devices. I borrow other people's phones, right, when I'm testing something, and I'm like, let me look at what it looks like, because there are so many different kinds of phones these days to see what does it look like on your device. Luckily, my husband's an IT guy, and he likes tech, and so we have multiple gadgets in our house, most of which I don't understand why we own them, but that's okay. So there's usually lots of things that I can pull and look at. Your content needs to be quality. It doesn't have to be long. It shouldn't actually be really long in most cases. It should be as concise as you can get it. Please remember that what you're loading on your website should be understandable by a 12-year-old. You shouldn't be writing above that, not for the general people that we're trying to communicate with as patient organizations, all right? And if you're not sure if your content is readable by a 12-year-old, find a 12-year-old and have them read it and have them explain back to you what they just read and see if they got it. Right? Seriously, focus groups are good, and 12-year-olds will work for candy. It's easy, right? Photos are great. Break up the content with photos. Just make sure they're not too big so they slow the load content. The best photos are ones that you actually have of the people that you work with versus stock photos. So take photos at your events. Remember to ask permission that you can use people's photos online. Do not just assume that they're going to be happy. There are people with our diseases that have not told anybody that they're sick, so they would really not appreciate you being the one who gets them out. So please make sure you have permission. You want your website to be really easy to navigate. I'll show you an example in a minute of how people really think about when they look at the internet. And make sure you have contact information. And we'll talk really briefly about SEO because it's another topic all by itself. SEO is search engine optimization. So that means when you're using Google or any other search function, how high you appear on the list of items that come up when someone types chronic lymphocytic leukemia or myelofibrosis or whatever it is into the search bar. Where do you fit in that mix? And part of that is just using certain keywords over and over again in your text. Not to the point that it reads really poorly, but making sure that you're using consistent wording through what you're doing. Now that includes when you're putting photos on a website, usually you have to put the name of the photo, right? When you're loading it up, the photo has a name. If you take it with your phone, it usually just gives you a bunch of numbers that are the date and stuff. Change the name of your photo so it says MPN at the CLL, whatever, right? So always put your keyword in the name of that photo. It'll help with your SEO as a really easy tip. All right, so when you're looking at content, you really need to know, are people going to know what it is we do within seconds? People are really impatient these days, right? We expect things to happen really fast, and you send an email and you're like, oh my gosh, why has that person not replied to me? And it's been maybe 5 minutes. So we have to account for that when we're looking at any of the content we're putting out there. You need to be able to explain who you are within seconds. When they land on a page, are they going to know right away what it's about and what I'm going to find here? Will they know what to do next? If I want more information, where do I go? If you have an event, how do I get there? What do they need to do? And why should they use your site as opposed to anybody else's, right? So that's based on the quality of the content that's in there. And make sure to include clear call to actions and next steps for what you're trying to do. And I'll give you examples of these. So this is the Lymphoma Canada website. You don't have to be able to read the details, and I'm not saying our website is perfect by any means, but I'm willing to rip our website apart for positive and negative, so that's why I used us as an example. So if we're looking at any page that you look at on the internet, there's an area that's called above the fold. And I put this fake line in here. And it's the part that actually appears on somebody's screen right away when they load it. They're not going to scroll all the way down automatically to say, oh my gosh, what's down there in case I need something later. They just look at that top section. So that should have most of your priority information right there. If it's not there, you're going to lose them right away. All right? Most people, if they're reading, will read a website the same way that they read text. So if you write in a language that reads left to right, people's eyes go left to right on a computer screen or your phone. If you communicate in a language that reads right to left, then that's how their eye will go. But because this is in English right now, I did the example showing you this. So their eye is going to go to the top left corner, and they're going to travel across really quick. What's there? What do they have for me? They're going to go down the left side. Very rarely will people go down the right side of your web page. And right above the fold line, they'll scan that information too. So anything you really want to communicate needs to be within the top portion of this F. All right? If they see something that's going to engage their attention, then they'll scroll down the rest of the left side to see if anything clicks on their eye to make them want to look further. All right? Does that make sense? So this is a highlight of our part that's above the fold, just so it's a little easier for you to see. If you're looking right away, you'll know who we are because our logo is at the top left corner. The main point that we want to communicate is still in this key area, so it's within that area that people are going to keep their focus. And we have a quick and easy button on the top right where they can contact us if they want more information. For us, because we communicate in 2 languages, there's also the toggle button between English and French. So it's easy for people to figure out right away, how do I get this information in the language that I speak? Now, where I say, and then of course the menu items are pretty clear. Be really, as much as possible, use simple language when you're on your website. Where people are like, using about us versus something long like, we are so creative, you'll love what we do. Don't use really long menu titles, and don't use big words. Don't be really creative with these. People like simply to find the information. You can be creative in the text. Don't do it in the menus. All right, we have another website because this one is informative, right? It's basically information is what you get on this website. There's video links, don't get me wrong. There's lots of ways you can order information. There's lots going on. We have this other website, which is another possibility for you, which is very specific about a certain topic. So this is all about what happens when you're not on treatment. So what do you do when you're on watch and wait? What do you do once you're over treatment and you're dealing with long-term complications of the disease? What do you do if you've had cancer and you're trying to get back into your regular life? This is just a compacted website just on these topics. And what this is, it's very much an interactive site. So this, you can answer questions, and videos will come up for you telling you all kinds of good stuff about what your specific issues, right? So it's a really interactive site. So don't think of websites that they just have to be static pieces of information. There are options out there about what they're going to be. How much time do I have? Okay. I'm going to go through this really fast. Blogs, just so you know, blogs are supplementary, can be supplementary information to your website. You don't have to do them, but it's a way of having a website without having a website, right? They're a good place to start. Blogs, you can be more formal. Your language can be a little bit more higher level. It doesn't have to be a 12-year-old on a blog, because really then you're attracting very specific people who want to follow your specific content. All right, so you can be more technical if you need to. If you're going to do a blog on clinical trials and use some higher level language, you can do that in a blog space more than you can on a website. What a blog can do is help establish you as an authority. So please, it's easier if you're going to start a blog to pick a specific topic, even if it's time limited. Say, I'm going to talk about clinical trials for the next 4 months, and then if you want to switch topics, then you can. But if you're posting about all kinds of different things all the time on your blog, there's a chance that people will get confused about whether they want to follow your blog or not, because there's just way too much scope on it. Once you have a lot of followers, then you can play with that a little bit more, but to start, you should really focus a little bit. Again, blogging entities, there are all kinds of free services online, so there's lots of ways that you can blog that are inexpensive. You just have to commit the resources to writing them. This is actually Brian Kaufman's blog, so I know he started a blog before he started anything else, and this is how he first started communicating to people when he was diagnosed and was trying to figure out how does life work with CLL, and it's a great example if you want to look at it about what blogging can do. Or you can talk to Brian. I hear he's here. There he is. E-newsletters and e-bulletins are also just really fast and easy, good ways to communicate with people. Make your messages short as possible. Provide links out to places they can find other information. If there's too much information in an e-newsletter, people will not scroll. They don't go to the bottom. So if you can do short, concise, link out to places on your website. If they want more information, they can read it. It's usually better. You have to figure out how people are going to sign up. We have links on our website where it says sign up for our newsletter, and people do. It's not complicated, so it just gives a way. You can do the links from your social media accounts as well and get some information, get a good audience built up. You need a really good subject line so you don't count as spam, because it is a big issue. Whereas if you're like, give us money, you know that often spam emails are all about, my uncle has left you $5 million. If you just send me your personal information, you'll get that. There's lots of those. So there are key things that spam software picks up out of people's emails. So mentioning money or something like that in your subject line is usually not a good idea. All right. In this, I say beware of photos. And the only reason is, again, the photos are too big. They won't load on people's devices, and they'll get frustrated with your newsletter and they won't read it. All right. So it's actually easier to keep more white space, less photos in email newsletters or bulletins. Make sure you're maintaining your list. If people don't want to get your newsletters anymore, take them off the list. Don't make them angry. And just make sure they have a way to unsubscribe. With e-newsletters, just like our websites or anything else we're doing online, look at it on multiple devices so you can see how it looks. And then last, really quick, is just looking at forums. This is Nick's example from Health Unlocked, so you can talk to him about what he's been able to create with the CLL community, because this thing is used massively. A difference with a forum versus any of the other things I've talked about is a forum is interactive. It really is about people starting discussions, starting conversations, and those are called threads. So you'll have all these different threads coming where you can look at a topic, search by topic, see what the person posted, and see actually how the rest of their community is responding to their request for knowledge or commenting on the story that they gave. They're a good way of communicating with people, there's no question, but again, a lot of time and effort, but not cost, because a lot of these services, again, to start a forum are free. I'm going to stop.